Hey guys, for those of you who don't know who I am Redneck Mini 14, and I would just like to weigh in on the whole Navy Yard shooting that happened yesterday, and those people that lost their lives, and what gun control measures may perhaps be on the horizon coming up, as they tend to do with every mass shooting um, in the past few years, or any time, I guess. But and the sunglasses are due to the construction light in the background shining light on me. My camera doesn't need a lot of light, but anyway, for those of you who don't know, and for those of you who probably couldn't guess just by my username and maybe by other videos that you have seen, I am pro-gun, and I will continue to be pro-gun. And you know, I'm a gun owner myself. I have a few of them on the floor, which have all been safety checked, and I will show those in this video. And I'm just going to, these aren't really necessarily statistics with like percentages and all that. I don't want to bore you. They're just kind of like general things for the most part. So let's get started. Okay, the first thing on my notes is that Washington D.C. is basically a gun-free zone, which means that pretty much any building you go to in Washington D.C., you're not allowed to carry guns. The only people allowed to carry guns are the Secret Service and any authorized security. Just like in the Navy Yard where the shooting took place, the actual military doesn't carry guns. Only the security at the entrances carry guns. And, you know, there's security with guns there, and there's also metal detectors there. Yet somehow a gunman managed to sneak by a rifle, not a pistol, a rifle, as I've heard by eyewitnesses, that he had a rifle, and he managed to sneak it by the metal detectors and the armed security guards. Now, that kind of concerns me because some politicians might say that we only need military and law enforcement to carry guns. Well, this is even a more extreme case than that, where the military didn't have guns, but the law enforcement did, and no one else was allowed to have a gun, yet some criminal made it past it all and shot up a bunch of people. Just a little food for thought, you know. And we see this over and over again. Virginia Tech was a gun-free zone. The movie theater in Aurora, Colorado, gun-free zone. Sandy Hook Elementary, gun-free zone. You know, it's just like, why do a lot of banks get robbed? Because they're gun-free zones. You know, it's common sense. Because, I mean, no one's going to stop the gunman because no one has a gun until the police arrive. Okay. Now, Washington, D.C. is probably the most, has some of the most strict gun laws in the United States. But another city with very strict gun laws would be Chicago. And here's just a few statistics I picked up off of a website called crimechicago.com. And just before I say these, yeah, some of these figures may be, you know, a little more, a little less, but I researched like a Chicago newspaper, and the stories in the newspaper seem to match up the stories on this website, so I would imagine that these numbers are at least somewhat accurate. So, in 2011, there were 2,217 people shot. In 2012, there were 2,670 people shot. And since July 2013 up until July 31st, 2013, there were around 1,400 people shot. These are just the numbers that this website gave me, maybe give or take a little, but they seem to be somewhat accurate. Now, with all those shootings, the result is in homicides that in 2011 there were 441, 2012 there were 535, and August 28th, as of August 28th, 2013, there were around 300. That's pretty significant, especially in 2013 when it's only August. Now there's probably more now since it's September, but around 300 in one city, that's quite a lot. Moving on. Okay, right after the shooting at Sandy Hook, the Senator of California, Dianne Feinstein, proposed a federal assault weapons ban, which basically it would ban almost any semi-automatic rifle with a detachable magazine with any type of a grip, which in reality that's all of them, because they all have some sort of gripping device, right? Well, it named out like over 100, or I don't know what the number was. It named them all by name: the AR-15, the AK-47, what else? The M14. I don't know. All of those types of rifles, semi-automatic with detachable magazines. It would put a ban on. It would put a restriction on magazine capacity, restricting it to 10 rounds plus one in the chamber. It would ban pistol grips, all those kind of things. That pretty much has since been shot down. But I mean, if we still have anti-gun politicians in office, those are still subject to come up. Anyway, Dianne Feinstein's ban was very similar to a ban in the town where Sandy Hook happened, Newtown. But in that state, they also had a ban on assault rifles, apparently. The AR-15 was outlawed. Yet, the shooter at Sandy Hook, he had 3 guns. He had from what I've heard, a Glock 9mm, a Beretta 9mm, I think it was, and he had an AR-15. Huh. Now, if the AR-15 is banned in that state, how did this shooter manage to get an AR-15 in the school? Just a little food for thought. And they just want to put more laws on this federally. Well, obviously it didn't work in Sandy Hook. What makes you think it's going to work in the rest of the other 49 states? Another statistic that I don't have exact percentages on, but it's that rifles are used 1% to less than 1% every year in crimes. Now, the assault weapons ban focuses on tactical type semi-automatic rifles like the AR-15 and the AK-47. But that less than 1% is of all rifles, which include a rifle like this. This is a 30-30 Marlin 336 lever action. These rifles have been used in crime. I don't necessarily know that they've been used in crime this year or last year, but they have been used to commit crimes, to commit murders. And that's just one example, but a deer rifle is a very common rifle to be used in a crime, with, as a comparison to all rifles. So it's not only the AR-15, although maybe the AR-15 does come up more often than a deer rifle just because there's more of them out there. Just saying. So, rifles are used less than 1%. So why was the focus mostly on rifles? More, and even more, semi-automatic rifles, which, that makes it down to like what, less than 0.5% of the time is a semi-automatic rifle used for a crime. Okay, some statistics from the gunowners.org website. These are probably a little inflated, but, well, this is what it says. It says guns were used 2.5 million times a year for self-defense, or 6,850 times a day, which is more than 80 times more often than guns are used to kill. 2.5 million in a year, it sounds a little high. I did see on an article that the actual thing is actually in the hundred thousands of number of times guns are used in self-defense, and they were saying that these numbers are bogus, but they really aren't that bogus, but maybe they're inflated a little, but here's why. The guns were actually only used less than 8% of the time to actually kill or wound the attacker. So what happened the other 92% of the time? Well, I'd say one of three things happened. Number one, they simply just showed the attacker their weapon, and the attacker ran off because he didn't want to get shot. Number two, the person in self-defense did one of these. Made the sound of, this is a pistol. That's the sound a pistol makes. This is the sound a rifle makes. And this is the sound a shotgun makes, which is probably one of the most common home defense firearms. They simply made that sound with their action, and the criminal heard it, saw the gun, and he decided he was going to get out of there. It's a very common thing to do for homeowners, protecting their property, but a lot of them don't even have the guns loaded, which is not necessarily a good idea, because maybe the attacker is going to call your bluff and attack you anyway. So if you ever just want to make the sound like that to scare off your attacker, you might want to make sure that the gun's actually loaded in case he thinks it's not and he tries to attack you anyway. Now, these aren't necessarily the best examples of guns used in self-defense, but they're all I have. Okay, that's all I have on my notes for today. Now, I might get some hate mail or something from anti-gunners. I do ask that if you put comments in the comment section below, that you please be respectful. You have your opinions, I have my opinions, and that's just how it is. If you're pro-gun, and if you want to, if you're fighting the battle for against gun control, I recommend that you contact your representatives and keep persuading them to go against gun control. And we can win this fight, guys. So, if you like what you saw, please subscribe to my channel and like me on Facebook. I'm Redneck Mini 14, and until next time, be safe.